was so scary. We could have been blown over. Hi, we're Kim and Norm from Mountain Beaches, and we're the channel that brings you all the fun things about RV living. And today we are going to be talking about wind.
And how not to get blown over in your RV. We're going to share 10 tips with you today on how to secure your RV in a windstorm.
It was a little scary.
It was very scary. We recently caught ourselves in a windstorm in South Dakota. And South Dakota is known for winds, and we knew that going in.
Yep.
So we kept a good eye on the weather.
We did keep a good eye on the weather, and we were on the bluff of the Badlands, and so the wind just has nowhere to stop it. It's just going to come right on through.
It just flat, and it just comes at you.
Yeah. So we were fortunate a few weeks ago that my sister shared with us a really great app. It's called windy.com, and it's an app that they use. They live in Napa area to track the fires, to see which way the wind is blowing, to see if they needed to get out of there. And she shared that app, and it is a wonderful app.
Yeah, it's a great app. It's not an app, it's a website, windy.com. Mm-hmm. And it's just great. It gives you all sorts of weather information, but the thing that we're most interested in today is it gives you wind, and it gives you wind directions, it gives you animations, and it gives you the sustained winds hour by hour, but also the gusts.
Right. And it tells you, 24, 48, 72 hours out what they're expecting that wind to be.
Exactly. So let's get into those 10 tips that you need to know to keep your RV from being blown over in a high windstorm.
And therefore, keeping yourself safe.
Yes. Okay, number 1 on the list is, if possible, don't drive through it. If you are driving, then we would recommend, if winds reach a sustained 30 miles an hour with gusts 40 to 45, it's time to get off the road. And the best way to do that is find the nearest exit, and then not just pulling off the road, but finding a place where you can hunker down behind a building or something that's going to protect you from the wind.
But just stopping and trying to get yourself in a place that you're a little bit more protected from the wind.
The big thing is to stay safe. And once the winds get above 30 with gusts 40 to 45, you're no longer safe. It may not blow you over, but it might if it's a crosswind. But it's just so stressful driving in those conditions, and your rig is going to be bouncing around, and that in of itself is dangerous. Okay, so what's tip number 2?
So number 2, if you're stationary in one place, is pull in the slides. Just make yourself as small as possible.
And another advantage to doing that is that brings all the weight to the center of the RV, which helps you become more stable as well. And it removes those big sails that you have sticking out, wherever your slides are. Okay, tip number 3. Store anything that you have outside of your trailer inside, whether in the basement storage or just inside your trailer. Get all of your gear that's out there, your chairs, whatever, and put it inside, or it's going to end up somewhere else and might even end up being blown into your trailer or somebody else's trailer.
Right. And sometimes you don't know. Sometimes the winds kick up all of a sudden, and so it doesn't matter how neat you are, just get all that stuff inside. Tip number 4, check your storage bays and your propane bays and make sure that they are all latched tight and that they're secure. You don't want anything to be happening to anything in your basement, and especially to your propane.
Right. Just double check those. I can't tell you how many times I've thought I've had my bay doors closed and I've left one of them open. So just do a quick visual, make sure they're latched tight. Tip number 5, make sure all of the windows inside your RV and your roof vents are closed. If you leave those open, dust and dirt is going to get inside, you're going to feel the wind, and it's just not going to be comfortable. So best thing is make sure all of those are closed tight.
Tip number 6, if you can, hook up your tow vehicle to your trailer. That will act like a 8,000-pound anchor, and it really helps with all the sway and makes you more secure.
Right. And if you're driving a motorhome, that's not an option. But for those of you with trailers, particularly fifth wheels, that's going to give you a lot more stability during that wind. Tip number 7, point your RV directly into the wind. Think about your RV driving down the interstate at 60, 65 miles an hour. It's designed to have the airflow go up and over, and it's designed to handle that. Point your RV, whatever it is, directly into the wind, and you're going to be most stable in that situation. If you're crossways, you have the possibility of getting blown over.
Right. And sometimes people think that you just need to be directly into the wind, but you need to make sure that the front of it is directly into the wind and not the back side, because that's a big square lightweight place that can be lifted up, and if you can, put your vehicle frontwards into the wind. All right, we're up to number 8. Fill your tanks as much as possible, especially your freshwater tank. It just gives, water is heavy, it's going to give that much more stability to your rig.
Right, and it's low, it's at the lowest point of your trailer, so it's a low center of gravity weight point. It's like another anchor. If the winds are going to be big enough, consider even filling up your black and gray tanks and then refilling your fresh water. That's going to give you just so much more weight, so much more stability, and keep your trailer on the ground. Tip number 9. Now this one you need to do before the wind hits you. Get up on your roof and just check everything. Make sure anything that is fixed to the roof is tight. All the bolts and screws are fastened down tightly. There's nothing that's going to be rattled by the wind. You're going to want to do that before the wind hits, because once the wind hits, don't get up on the roof.
No. And that's something you might want to do just on a regular basis.
True. Yeah.
You know? So how many times, now this is number 10, so how many times have you forgotten to look up to make sure what tree branches and what other kinds of things are above you that might fall on you in a big windstorm or just in any other kind of situation? You want to look and make sure that you don't have a lot of those kind of things that are going to fall on your trailer.
Sometimes you can't avoid it depending on where you're at, but if you can, move your trailer into a wide open position, point it into the wind, and no branches or really anything above you that could fall.
So that's 10.
We have bonus.
We have bonus.
Bonus tips. Okay. So bonus tip number 1. Make sure you have a good quality, portable, battery operated weather radio. This one that we have is inexpensive. We'll put the link below. We got ours on Amazon, and we're Amazon affiliates. And so if you buy through us, we'll get a little bit of kickback on that. It doesn't cost you anything more. But this radio is really a good radio, and it provides weather. It'll wake you up in the middle of the night if there's a weather alert. An alarm will go off. It'll speak to you and tell you what the alert is.
Pueblo, partly cloudy, 47. Lyman, mostly cloudy, 38 degrees. Once again at 9 p.m., Colorado Springs, partly cloudy, 42 degrees.
This can be a lifesaver.
But you need to have it out of the drawer and turned on, because in our first windstorm, it was in the drawer and turned off.
Now, she's not supposed to be giving away all our dirty laundry in these videos, but it's true.
It's true.
I had put it in the drawer for travel, and I forgot to take it out, and so my bad.
Yep. And I'm laying in bed thinking, hey, the weather alert isn't going off. We're just fine.
Bonus tip number 2. Have a backup plan. Always watch the weather regularly. It can change fast, so you should be looking at that weather daily. But have a plan B in case. This happened to us when we were at the Badlands, and then we got up one morning and looked at windy.com and found out that later that day and all night long, winds were going to be in the 40 mile an hour range,
60.
Well, gusts up to 60 or 70 miles an hour.
Right.
We didn't want that, and we were on the edge of the bluff. If we get blown over, we go down into the valley.
It's a pretty horrible demise.
Yeah, and then we started looking more at where we could go. And this was a widespread windstorm. We were going to have to travel many, many hours to get out of it. We made the decision first thing that morning to pack up and get out of there. And we ended up driving all the way to Fort Collins, Colorado. If things get bad and you have to hunker down, utilize these tips that we shared with you. If you can get out of it, do that. But stay safe. That's the bottom line.
It's the bottom line. And I'm sure that a lot of you have had this experience in your own rigs or in other times. So put those comments below. We want to learn from you. We want to know what you've done to stay safe and give us tips on what we can do.
Thank you so much. And remember to live your dreams to discover new adventures.
Because tomorrow is never promised. So we're living for today. And so are you.
See you next week.